0.08 Have your say. Have your say. Let your voice be heard. Knowledge is power. You will gain the power of civic expression. At the end of this lesson, you will complete a brief quiz on how civic expression has been important in American society. Expressing opinion. Everyone has an opinion. Fortunately, in the United States, citizens have the right to express their views. This includes views on how government should work, and since the nation's inception, people have demanded the right to civic expression. Inception, beginning. Civic expression, voicing issues and concerns about one's community or government. Americans have expressed their opinions on many issues. Some examples are self-government, the meaning of freedom, and universal suffrage. Civic expression can be an action such as volunteering or voting. It can include writing letters to the local newspaper, giving a speech, creating art, or crafting a poem. Reading and writing well is important to good citizenship and civic expression. Citizens who have developed those skills are in the best position to speak out about important civic issues. They help fight for the rights of those who are unable to fight on their own. Civic expression is not a new concept. In fact, it played a key role in early American history. America then and now. When American colonists declared independence from Great Britain, not only did they have to fight for it, they had to set up their own government. They wanted a representative democracy where elected leaders would make decisions on behalf of the citizens. The U.S. Constitution outlines the way the government is structured and how it works. Setting up wasn't easy. People argued over what powers it should and shouldn't have. Many would only support the Constitution if specific rights for people were added to it. The first 10 amendments, or changes, helped alleviate their concerns. First Amendment, protection of free speech and political and religious freedom. Then, early Americans knew that certain rights were key to protecting overall freedom. Examples include being able to meet and speak freely, publish ideas without fear, worship as they chose, and request government action. Under colonial rule, some of these freedoms were taken away. Now, people continue to exercise these rights today, sharing ideas on the internet. Whether those ideas are popular or unpopular, it is a protected right under the First Amendment. Second Amendment, protection for the right to bear arms. Then, everyday Americans helped fight British rule in the Revolutionary War. They brought their own weapons. They saw this right as an important way to protect themselves from a government that limited their freedom. Now, people today exercise this right through ownership of guns. They legally use them for self-protection and hunting. However, like the other rights, it is not unlimited. Laws limit the rights in a certain way. The purpose is to protect the safety and rights of people as a whole. Third Amendment, protection from the quartering of troops. Then, before U.S. independence, Great Britain required colonists to provide housing and food for British troops. Many were stationed in the colonies to keep order. The colonists felt threatened and that their privacy was intruded upon. Now, the amendment remains in place through the U.S. military houses and provides for soldiers or assists them in obtaining their own houses. However, this amendment prevents any law that would require Americans to quarter troops from being created. Fourth Amendment, protection from unwarranted search and seizure. Then, under colonial rule, some colonists experienced loss or the threat of loss of their material goods or other property. They wanted to make sure the new government could not search their homes and take anything without suspicion of a crime. Today, you don't have to worry about the police or military coming into your home to search and take whatever they want simply because they feel like it. Email and phone calls are also protected, unless someone involved in them is a suspect in a crime. Fifth Amendment, protection from those accused of crimes. Early Americans were concerned that no government should be able to force people to give evidence against themselves when accused of crimes. This amendment also protected them from being declared not guilty of a crime, but later being forced back into court to face trial for that same crime. Now, if you are accused of a crime, you do not have to take the stand in court to prove your own innocence. Some people choose to give up this right, but it is their choice. If you went to court and were found guilty, you would not have to worry about new evidence in the case forcing you back to court again. Sixth Amendment, protection for the right to a speedy and public trial. Then, during colonial days, if a British soldier or official committed a crime, they traveled to Great Britain to face trial. Some colonists faced the same situation. This slowed the trial process and prevented the public from being able to see it. They believed open trials were necessary to prevent abuse or a blunder of justice. Today, if you are accused of a crime, this amendment protects your right to a trial that happens as quickly as possible. It will occur near where the supposed crime happened. It also protects your rights to have a jury decide the case and for assistance from an attorney. Seventh Amendment, protection for a trial by jury in civil cases. When colonists had conflicts with one another, they had limited to no legal help in resolving the problems. They considered it important to have such issues heard and decided just as carefully as in a criminal trial. The idea is that through a group of people, you are more likely to get a fair decision than if it depends on one judge. Now, imagine your neighbor claims you threw a baseball through his window and he wants you to pay for it. You deny it was you, and he takes you and your parents to court. Both sides have the right to request that a jury decide the case rather than a single judge. Eighth Amendment, protection from cruel or unusual punishment. Some Americans then were concerned that the new government could establish very severe punishments for crimes. This amendment would prevent torture, excessive bail, or other punishments people thought extreme. Today, you don't have to worry about something like a 100-year jail sentence and $1 million fine for a late assignment. Judges have guidelines for sentencing based on state laws and what the public deems appropriate. Ninth Amendment, protection for unmentioned rights of the people. Then, many Americans worried that if a certain right was not listed in the Constitution, states would pass laws or punish people for using it. They could not anticipate every situation they could come up related to individual rights that could come up. Now, just because there's no specific law about an action does not mean you can't do it. Say you want to send your friend a picture of your guinea pig. There's no law relating to sending it, so you can assume you can, unless your parents forbid it for that late assignment. Parents get to ignore many of the amendments, so be sure to stay on the right side of the law, theirs and the government's. And finally, the 10th Amendment, protection for the rights of the states and the people. Like unmentioned rights, Americans then wanted to preserve the power of states to make laws for situations not mentioned in the Constitution. The power of states was a major concern, and this amendment would help find balance between the state and federal power. Now, because of this amendment, Americans have the opportunity to be educated in their local area. Education is not mentioned by the Constitution, but this amendment allowed states to start schools and pass laws related to public education. Subdued voices. Though Americans won their freedom from Great Britain, not all of them won the right to be heard. African Americans were limited in their expression during the nation's early history. Most African Americans were enslaved until 1865, so they were not considered citizens, but property. Even after they were freed, they still could not vote. Women's expression was limited as well. For many years, women could not vote, nor could they own property. Despite the challenges they faced, some women and African Americans found ways to express their frustrations over their lack of rights. Read portions of the Declaration of Rights and Sentiments and What the Black Man Wants. Each excerpt is partnered with the explanation to help you understand why each piece is significant. Select Next and Previous to navigate between screens. Declaration of Rights and Sentiments. In 1848, leading men and women met in New York to discuss strategy for the women's rights movement. Out of that meeting came the document Declaration of Rights and Sentiments, from which the following excerpts are taken. Leading women such as Lucretia Mott and Elizabeth Cady Stanton helped prepare and present it. It models the structure of the Declaration of Independence to state its case that women deserved equal rights with men. What the Black Man Wants by Frederick Douglass. Near the end of the Civil War in April 1865, Frederick Douglass spoke at the annual meeting of the Massachusetts Anti-Slavery Society. As a man who had escaped slavery and learned to read, write, and speak well, Douglass was a powerful figure at meetings such as this one. His speech focuses on the equality of men before the law and makes many strong points. Like the previous document, he focused heavily on the right to vote. As you read, consider the similarity of Douglass's arguments to those the Patriots and Loyalists made years before. Gaining a voice. Throughout the years, the ability to vote has been viewed by many as the ultimate form of civic expression. Over time, amendments or changes to the Constitution have been necessary to expand voting rights. The 15th Amendment is protecting the rights of former slaves to vote. This expanded to suffrage of millions of African American males 21 years and older. The 19th Amendment. 50 years later, the Constitution gave women suffrage, that is, the right to vote. 24th Amendment. One way many southern states prevented many African Americans and poor whites from voting was to charge a fee for it. They called this a poll tax. But in 1964, the 24th Amendment was approved. It stopped states from charging people to vote in national elections. The 26th Amendment. The right of citizens of the United States who are 18 years or older to vote should not be denied or abridged. Before 1972, most states required voters to be at least 21 years old. That year, the state passed the 26th Amendment. It lowered the voting age to 18. Now you'll be familiar with the value and history of civic expression. It's an important part of American life. Civic expression over time. Americans have demanded their rights over time through different forms of civic expression. Voting, action, writing, and speech. What is my assignment for this lesson? Read the lesson again. Finish any activities in the lesson. Go to assignment 4.08, have your say, and complete the quiz on civics and civic expression.